What's up, everybody? Today I thought I'd go back and do some type of a summary video where I talk about my the notes that I've taken in the Deadmau5 class. I just want to be able to kind of share some of the finer points. I mean, he talks about a lot of stuff, and some of the stuff he talks about in hardware just kind of goes right over my head. I did not get a lot of it, and I think there's one thing I got out of that lesson, and I'll share that with you. But I guess this will be a biased kind of a view, but I was just going to take a few moments and try to summarize exactly what I learned, so you can sort of follow along, and then also create your own. Ideally, you buy the class and you kind of do your own melodies and all that kind of stuff. The assignments in the class, it's really a great class, and there's a forum there where you can sort of chit chat with other people and really get into the whole thing, right? And people are really supportive. They're not just like, dude, you suck, and blah blah blah, and like the regular rest of internet. And they understand that this is a process, that everybody's a different sort of part of the process, I guess. And it's all about creating music. So not everybody's trying to just get like super rich or something like that. A lot of people are. I get it. That's not my goal. My goal is to make really good music. I have a really awesome job and have a really great, successful career other than music. So I really don't see myself like ever trying to go out there and be like on stage and everything. But not opposed to it. But just saying, it's not my thing. But I just want to make really good music. So starting there. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to start trying to summarizing what I got out of this class. All right. So first thing is one of the things that he points out is that ideas have to form when you're sitting in front of your DAW, your laptop, or whatever you're doing, right? So, and then that's kind of that was like the first thing I heard, which just like almost had a light bulb moment in my head. And I think literally that was like a sentence he said. And, but the idea was, instead of thinking of it like this, where, okay, I'm going to go ahead and sit down, I'm going to think really hard. All right, it's time to be creative now. All right, let's see. What's a good drop? Let's see. No. You know what I mean? Like we're not doing that. Is what the thing he's saying is. He's saying the way he goes about doing it, which I loved, is that you just sit down on your DAW and you start figuring out what it is that you need to do by actually doing it. So you get on a piano roll and you start putting notes down, and you start just defining what it is that you want to accomplish in this session that you're in when you're sitting down and creating something. Whatever rules that you can muster up in terms of musical knowledge, whatever creativity you can muster up, you bring it to the table and you just start putting notes down. You don't judge yourself. I mean, half the time, how many times have you thought of a melody or rhythm or something and you say, that would never work. It's stupid. It's dumb. It doesn't sound like, blah, blah, blah producer that I follow. I don't hear this or that. Maybe it would. I don't know. But I don't have the skill. And so, forget it. Right? But what he's saying is sort of like suspend that voice a little bit, right? Not with so many words, but he's saying that suspend that voice a little bit and think to yourself, hey, I've got a musical idea, or sorry, I've got time to work on music. Let me get down on inside a DAW and start working on an idea. And the way to work on that idea is just to start. And just to start without judgments, just start working on it. and don't kill the idea. Just see where it goes. But eventually, if the idea goes somewhere it doesn't really, it's not forming into anything else, then maybe it's time to kill it. And when you do kill it, what he recommends is you take that idea and you chop it up into little pieces that you can maybe use later, and you collect your own bits and pieces of that you've developed. So meaning you take out the MIDI information and put it into a bin called awesome not vengeance MIDI loops or something, right? So yeah, basically try to create your own collection of musical loops and ideas that you could use in the future. All right. So also, one of the ways that we think of working a song, which I did right before this class, literally right before this class, I was stuck at a song because I did this. I started at the intro. I went into like a build-up phase, and I had this crazy build-up, and I was like, and then what's the drop? I can't think of the drop, and I'm there still. And it's like, so it's that happens to me like so many times, going from left to right, meaning when you write a song, if you go left to right, you're gonna get stuck because it's just not a good way to do it. I think I've tried it so many times, it doesn't work that well. So what he's saying is the first thing you want to do is plot down the main phrase, okay, the hook, chord progression with melody on top, harmonies, whatever. Put it all together first, and then start to take that around a bit, split it to different sections. So maybe the hook maybe the main part has a chord progression that you take the top line, and maybe some kind of a high instrument can like take that, and you create a bass line out of the same chord progression, and then you work on a melody line from the same chord progression. So you do all that in the hopes that you're basically trying to figure out exactly what this song should look like, right? You go from the heaviest portion of the song and you start to drive the other sections, like the intro, like the breakdown, like the drop, right? And so the idea is to sort of work on a couple of bars of this stuff first. Work on a few bars. So in my case, when I heard that, I said, okay, let me work on this, and I did, and I created this little thing here. I don't know if you've been watching my other videos, you'll probably see, this one that I kind of discussed earlier, so it's not a huge surprise or anything. Where am I at? Hold on a second here. Here we go. So essentially, like, I had a main phrase that I sort of developed here. Hold on a second. All my sound is all crazified right now. There we go. Sound. Oh, some things. So that's the main phrase that I developed, right? And then it's like a bunch of things are playing and whatnot, and I think I have a couple of things muted too, so whatever. And then there was a main kind of a drop that I did right after that based on the main phrase. Right, so I did that. So when I had that much done, so I started with the first portion only, then I derived the second portion. Once I had that much done, I was able to take the main area and then go left and start an intro. Right? so on and so forth. And then I have a breakdown, and so on. So I just basically have an entire song from one chord progression, and that's what he was saying. You start with laying down the basic, the rhythmic patterns that you want to consider, the melodies you want to consider, the chord progression you want to consider, and make that the most complex area. Okay. Once that is done, your song is done. In your head, you should first of all high five yourself and say, okay, I've got the most complex area and all parts of anything that's going to be playing in this entire song. Okay, I get it. You're going to put like sound effects here and there. You're going to put maybe a little different variation in the here and there. I get that. But from a perspective of getting an idea down, that's what it means. Get the most complex sound down. Okay, then the last portion of this process is getting the actual sound, the instrument, the right drums that you're going to use. Okay, and then making the mix coherently and arranging them into different areas. Okay, that whole bit of getting the right sound, having the right synth, all that stuff, which I focus on first, which we're not supposed to. So meaning it's okay to like try to have a sound be your guide to do some type of experimentation. Totally fine, right? But don't get into the habit of like perfecting a sound and then looking for another perfect sound to match that sound, and then trying to EQ that sound and trying to put a bunch of reverbs on it, and then just I don't know. Just don't go into that detail. Just write the idea down first. Write the MIDI notes. Bring in whatever loops you need to bring in. Instead of having a perfect maybe drums in there, just throw in a vengeance loop for now. Right? Just throw it in, just so that you have something in there. All right. So that was the main part. What he covered in like the first two classes, 1 and 2. Also, and there's a tip he provided, said, hey, to get on the map in terms of EDM music or whatever, you need to be unique. And then you should take, you should copy. He's saying you should copy other artists, but when he says that, he means copy the ideas, not the sound, right? So look at the ideas, like what are they doing in their music. So you have to listen to it critically to be able to do that. I will warn you though, once you start listening to things critically, it's sometimes hard to disengage. Like you have to stop thinking and say, okay, I'm not going to analyze this track. So, but I guess that becomes part of it. It's part of the package of you working on music. So yeah, listen to other people's music. He mentioned 9 Inch Nails. And he said, hey, look at their melody stuff, and that's where I got my inspiration. But he said, hey, remember, 9 Inch Nails, already done, right? He did it. So what else can you get inspiration out of that other people haven't gotten out of, right? I mean, what can you pull something out from an idea kind of perspective and do something where people are like, oh man, I've never heard of that before? Or will your stuff sound like everybody else? I don't think there's anything wrong with doing the either way. So I think if you need to, like, I had this offer from this person. She wanted me to do some gigs in a club, and she said, oh, but you've got to totally drop whatever you're doing. This sound is not going to work. You got to go like this minimal house, tech house thing, and here's what's going to sound like. I just like, man, that's, to me, like doing it like a tech house, to me, okay, I know tech house people are going to be like, fuck you. But to me, doing a tech house thing, day in and day out, I would just get burned the fuck out. Like, what am I doing? Like, it's just like, there's no point. Like, you're like almost like background music to other people sipping a drink. I don't want to be a background music, thing. I mean, I don't really care about earning money, I guess, in with music. So my approach is a whole different. I care about like making music. So somebody who needs to do this as a job needs to do that kind of stuff, right? They need to go out there, get that tech house gig. They do that like, I don't know how many times people do that stuff per week, and they sit there, clank out those same beats, same things over and over again. The loops run for like 20 minutes, whatever they gotta do to earn that dollar and pay that bill. I get it, but I just have a different point of view, and I'm not interested in going to that route. So, but that was the idea, that you copy from other artists, but copy in the sense you take ideas from them and not like actual melody lines or actual sounds of synths. Try to create your own sounds. Also, one thing he mentioned, which was interesting, which you can't quite put to words. He was saying that when you're working on a sound, and you're trying to figure out a sound that is really great, so like an awesome pluck or a great kick sound you're trying to figure out, or some kind of synth that you want, which you don't know exactly what it is, but you're trying to look on every preset you have. You're trying to twist any knob you can find, right? But he's saying that when a sound hits your ears and you're like, "Ooh, what is that?" Like, that's the sound. Like, use those sounds that perk up your ear. So yeah, that's very hard to define logically, right? Meaning, I'm not sure exactly how to replicate that. Meaning, how do I go right to that sound? I don't think that's possible. I think you have to experiment. So you sit down and you experiment, and you discover sounds. Maybe you turn the knob a little too high. Maybe you put a saturation on that, which you shouldn't have, or something. I don't know. Maybe you compressed the hell out of it and then did something else to it, right? Maybe you fed the source of that sound into a vocoder and then compressed that and then put that back into something else. Who knows? Like a wow filter or something. So that's the idea. It's just a lot of that experimentation when you sit down and you try to create sound. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about experimentation at that level. Okay. But I do think I have a little bit of a theory what perks up your ears. I think I could be totally wrong, and sound people tell me if I'm totally wrong, but I'm thinking of it from a physics perspective. If you have waves that are sort of harmonic, is that the right word? But basically waves that don't cancel each other. So if you have a note that you're playing and you have another note that you're playing, and they don't have issues where the waves are canceling each other out in many spots, causing the final sound to be anemic, I think if you don't have that situation and you have a pretty girthy sound, and you can have more interesting sounds that way. Because if you think about his quote Deadmau5 pluck, it's pretty fat, right? It's not like some anemic little dink, right? It's a fat, thick, lush pluck, right? Same thing with everything else. Everybody talks about things like, oh, it's gonna be fat, lush, blah blah blah. What they're talking about is, to me, I always try to figure out, like, what are they actually saying, right? Because I want to know how to replicate it. When you put the chord down, when you say root and you hold down the fifth, right, or the seventh, ninth, you're trying to choose frequencies which go together well. Okay? So you're not going to put down root and second note. Let's say the root is C. You're not going to hold C sharp and C together. They're kind of together because they're going to clash a lot. So, but you put, a root and a fifth together. Oh, magically it's going to sound really great. I wonder why. Well, the frequency is boosting each other, right? Like almost they're layering on top of each other in a manner that's that's tuned, that's they're not canceling each other out. So I think what I'm thinking is when you have a sound that does that, I think that automatically sounds to us, oh, I like that, because it's supporting the root note, right? So more experimentation needs to be done, but that's my first idea that came to my mind when he says, sounds that perk your ear should be used in your arrangements. So I get it. I'm going to do some more experimentation on sound design. I haven't even started there yet, so I'll have more to say later on that. Okay, so, and then the last tip he said was, wait for a few days after you finish the track and listen to it a few times before uploading it to SoundCloud or releasing it. This is a funny one because I'm probably guilty of this, where I'm like, I upload something and it gets some views and I'm like, I don't want to take it off now, but damn, that little snare, or fuck, that little thing I could have fixed. But I don't know. I've gotten into the mode now that it's done and it's done. Move on, right? So take it for what it is. He's saying listen to it a couple of times before you upload it, just so it's not all messed up. All right. So, and then also the masterclass folks gave you an assignment saying, hey, go out there and figure out, experiment, and figure out where you think about music the best. Where do you work on the music? Like, do you need to be in a studio surrounded by electronic equipment, or are you on a laptop and that's what you got? I literally work off of a laptop, and I think in terms of equipment, I have a push 2 and a keyboard, and I use the push 2 a lot of times, but I don't, I use that instead of the keyboard now. So, but I could be anywhere and doing this stuff, and I am. So I love that about my setup. I don't have to be plugged in. I don't have like LED lights flashing or 3 monitors or anything like that. I'm I intentionally keep it nimble. Like, it's not that I can't afford that stuff. I could build a $10,000 studio tomorrow. I don't want to, because I just don't want to be plugged in that much. Now, later on, if I need equipment to get a better sound, sure, I'll get there. But right now, no way. A laptop is all I need, and the right software, which is Ableton Live, and you buy it here. Just kidding. I don't know. I don't get any of that. All these endorsements are like unpaid. Anyhow, so here's the thing. As people were going through these lessons, they were also creating melodies and things like that, right? So, I'll be covering those in the second lessons, like which melodies I created and all that kind of stuff. All right, hopefully that was helpful, and I'll record the next one which was lesson 3, summary of that next, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you very much.